A very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to Tuesday's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Toiwan Jabela, your host. Let's have a look at some of the headlines in Wednesday's Namibian Sun. $1.3 billion for SOEs this year. That is the amount that Finance Minister Shimi is allocated to public enterprises in the current financial year. Problem lion hunt raises $150,000 for conservation. That is an elephant that was causing problems somewhere, and it was shot dead, raising that amount of money. The details are in Wednesday's edition. And of course, the Governor of Umsati, Elginus Njala, warning Namibians not to abuse desperate Angolan refugees that are migrating into the country because of the conditions in their own country. Tonight, we are joined in the studio by President of the Namibia Local Authorities, Moses, you have to forgive me. NALAO. NALAO is Namibia
Association of Local Authority Officers.
Wonderful. We only know NALAO now because it has become a brand on its own. Moses is the chairperson of NALAO, and he is here to talk to us about. In fact, he issued a statement in the past couple of days condemning the manner in which officials of local authorities are being treated in Namibia, especially the perpetual suspension of CEOs. Welcome, Moses. Sum up for us, for our viewers, what you sort of alluded to in your statement.
Thank you very much, and greetings to the viewers. We appreciate that we could be able to dispose some aspects of our communication. However, that was, I should say, it was meant to be an official document between our offices.
It ended up on our desks.
Ended up in your desk, so it's public opinion now.
Yes.
What we have actually discussed in the document is our repeated call that we've had already called to the minister on as a form of engagement between our institutions and our governance oversight ministry, which is the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development. What is of concern is the issue of perpetual frivolous suspension of CEOs. We call it perpetual and frivolous simply because if in any case the leadership at any local authority council are to provide leadership, then they should be the ones to comply with the laws. Why? Simply because when they were sworn in as members of council, they took an oath in front of a presiding officer or magistrate in terms of Section 10 of the Local Authorities Act to uphold the Constitution of the Republic of Namibia and to uphold the laws of the Republic of Namibia. Now, one of the provisions of the law in the Local Authorities Act under Section 29 on the suspension of CEOs or on firing a CEO or cutting ties with a CEO is definitely to ensure that there is prudence in the process on a procedural matter and also on substantive matters. Now, what has transpired is that, or what should have happened, is that the councils should come up with a prima facie case where they have certain doubts of certain issues happening, which they must submit to the minister to say we have got a prima facie case that we want to actually investigate in depth so that we can unearth the facts. And because of the fact that the person involved is the CEO, we want him to be suspended such that the investigation can be undertaken without any hindrances. So then the minister would say, fine and well, I do agree that there is certain doubts in certain areas that are of administration nature, what have you. Please go ahead and suspend the CEO and charge him as soon as you find anything that is untoward. But unfortunately, that has been ignored in many cases, and those are cases within which we have cited in our letter. We've cited of cases of certain CEOs that have been suspended without following that specific procedure. The CEO of the Southern Local Authority Council of Stamford was suspended without that procedure being upheld. As much as there is evidence or there is doubt or facts to that nature, we would like to follow. We would like that at least that provision of the law must be followed, such that a substantive case is established, procedural fairness is not compromised. He succumbed to death while he was on suspension to COVID-19. We have cases such as the Shali Akwanyenga, who is the CEO of Oranjemund, who's been on suspension, has not been charged up to now since last year. We have the suspension, we saw the suspension of the CEO of Valtersbaai municipality. He was suspended and then reinstated without no charge. His contract ended. So at the end of the day, there is no employment security with our employers. And this is where we are calling upon our governance oversight and policy supervisor, which is the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development, to actually call our principals to order. And he's got that right to do that, especially when there is such an amount of cases that still are not yet dealt with according to procedure and according to processes that are established in law.
Wonderful. One of the things, Moses, is when you talk about, for example, the CEO of Walvisbay, and it's not only applicable to him, it is a lot of your counterparts have gone through that, where you get suspended, you don't get charged, or you get charged but you are cleared at the end. And I mean, for example, the CEO of Walvisbay, if he seeks employment elsewhere from now on, there's also a question of reputation, because suspensions, just that phrase alone is so damaging. Do you think, do you agree therefore that even professionally there's just damage that comes with that your principals must be as patient as possible not to suspend you and drag your name into these things, and only do so when there's really a bit of credibility to the allegations?
Of course, Toys, I so much agree with you on that specific score, and what we are on record to actually state the specific detriment that this would actually have on the professional standing of the CEOs. Definitely, when I talk about employment security, is with a current employer, and definitely perceived future employment. It would be very difficult for anybody to employ somebody that has been suspended, because they would want to guard against their brand. You can imagine a successful company that is doing very well, and I apply to that company while I have actually been suspended. I've not been charged, and my contract ended. I am totally and permanently tainted as one of the bad guys in management or professionally. So reputation would definitely be damaged to such an extent that the market would not even want to regard you as employable, and also whether you are credible. So your character becomes questionable. Your professionalism becomes questionable. And this is what we are calling upon to say this must be guarded against, because the detriment weighs more on not only on the individual, on a professional level and on a personal level, but also it weighs into the aspect of the company. I am suspended, I'm on suspension for such a long time, but I'm being paid a salary. And that money is public funds that the person is being paid for. And the person has been staying there without being charged. So these are issues that I think we raise, and we definitely are on record to say the detriment of such action taken at a quick swipe would weigh more. I can assure you, or I can give you an example again. The CEO of Walvis Bay has actually calculated all his losses, and it is in the media that he is requesting for 18 million. I'm not sure how credible that is, but that's definitely the damage that would come. Who's going to pay for that if he happens to be successful with his claim? It's the employer. And whose money is it? It's public funds. But who caused that? It's the decision that was taken without having followed that specific process. And this is where we are cautioning that we must not be hasty in suspending. We rather need to do a prudent process such that we can all be absolved. Where we are absolved or where we haven't found anything, let us issue a statement to absolve the person that yes, we have done an investigation, we have found A and B to be wanting, or we've not found anything of substantive nature. So the case is packed and we are back to our normal relationship. That would also give confidence to the employment market to actually look at that individual to say, no, he was actually exonerated from all the other issues that were raised.
Indeed. Because I'm reminded, Moses, of there was a man, I can't remember his name, he was in the papers from the City of Windhoek. He's an executive there. He had gotten a job at Namport, a very senior position also, and then once the allegations are surfaced into the public that he was facing some sort of charges at the municipality, Namport rescinded their decision. And the man, for a period, because he had already resigned from the City of Windhoek, he had to beg literally for his job. Thankfully, council understood, and then they admitted him back into the job. Because imagine a situation like that. That poor man, I mean, I don't know whether he was guilty of anything or not. Because in fact, I think the charges were eventually dropped. But you can just imagine already, it speaks now to what you're saying, yes. that indeed you get into that situation and get your reputation completely damaged, and you miss out on life opportunities. And
that's very much correct. The risk weighs more very bad on the negative side than it is on the positive side, because of just a decision that one has felt. I mean, be that as it may, we are running institutions. And these institutions have got policies and guidelines, and these guidelines should actually not be overridden by emotions or personality cults, but it should be taken to the core of what process. That's all we're asking for, the process to be followed and let it be exonerated. Because definitely what we feel as CEOs and officials is that we are being left in the cold. And when I mean left in the cold is that when things drag on for 12 months and nothing happens and I'm just there, I don't know what's going to happen to me, especially when I'm on a contract of 5 years. When my contract comes to an end, I'm not sure whether that is going to play in my in my principals consideration, whether they would want to extend that contract or not. But if I, as a person, had to take that on and challenge the case on its merit, it could warrant that it might go in any direction. So if it goes in my direction, still we will come back to the public service institution, which is the local authority, and they will have to pay. I must not go further than the local I mean, I must not limit myself to the local authority. Let me stretch it further. I think you've reported in your media, in your print media, about the squabbles at NASFAF.
Yes.
And it's gone on for a long time. And the cost thereof having gone up to the juristic level, it has come to a level where a decision has been taken. And who should comply with that decision is the specific people that have taken a decision that is ultra-virus to what should have been done or what they should have done. I mean, this is just one case. The Windhoek case, not necessarily that I'm privy to, but exactly that is what would happen. But as a professional, you can also extend it to another aspect of saying, I'm also human. I can make mistakes.
Yes.
I'm also human. I've got a family to feed. I'm also human. I need to know exactly where my bread is going to come from tomorrow. But if within my human nature I've done something wrong, punish me. I don't have a problem with that.
Indeed. We go for a quick break and then revert for the second half of the show.
Have you received a loan from NASFAF? NASFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NASFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NASFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NASFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and hashtag payback the money.
Yeah.
We continue our conversation with Moses Matyayi. So, Moses, you spoke about the cost of these suspensions. Some of them arbitrary suspensions, and I think the complexity of that is that these are not private municipalities or local authorities. It's money from the same coffer, which is owned by the Namibian people as the collective. So why do we have this? Because you listed in your letter to the minister, you listed so many of these cases, people that are currently on suspension and those that returned much later. But to what do you attribute this kind of behavior? Is it local authority councillors not understanding the policies? Is there the level of education? Do we need to be specific in who qualifies to stand for the position of councillor? What is the problem?
Of course, Toivo, you would realize that in around 2013, there was a document released by the ministry with regards to an appointment of a local authority reform committee that was established during the 2008 to investigate into the necessary reforms that we would need in order for local authorities to operate well. And this document has actually just been gaining a lot of dust and has not really been taken up. One of the recommendations there was to definitely look at the governance structure of local authorities, where we are looking at specific requirements or minimum requirements of those that would be making decisions. Of course, to a specific level, for me, I look at it as an issue of personality. It's a combination of a lot of other things. Personality, behavior, as well as political drive. Of course, educational level could also be one. However, as many as they are, you must understand that the industry which we operate in is highly, and I should emphasize that, is highly politically polarized because of the nature of the way it is structured. You are not necessarily coming to a governance structure as on the basis of merit. but it's on the basis of popularity. The popular votes gets to get into the pot, and that's who your leaders become. But the argument also on the other side is that some people are saying, look, I may not have the relevant qualifications, but I'm successful running a business. Now, who said I cannot be able to sit on a certain board or on a certain council for me to take rational decisions? But we've actually juxtaposed this, and if you look at the trend of where we are right now, definitely it narrows down to that specific aspect of not understanding the operations of the local authorities. I mean, if it is an issue of understanding, the ministry, the institutions themselves has gone to an extent where they've provided workshops and training on how to be able to handle affairs of the local authorities. But still, as soon as we go out of the workshop and the training with our manuals and our documents, we go and do the arbitrary thing.
So, but that is exactly why I have an issue, because I think, Moses, that education is important, especially formal education, because I think, we think that you can bring a Toivan Jabela with a grade 10 certificate as his highest qualification, and you think that by putting him through some workshops, he will internalize these things, because education, unfortunately, the way it works is that you need to have accumulative understanding of things for you to appreciate future training. But if you just, I run a bar or a toveni in your town, and then I'm very popular there within my party, and then I get voted, and then Moses gives me an audit report, your financial reports, and I must appreciate and absorb the facts of that report. I stand no chance whatsoever. So I think personally that it's important that you guys that are in that space, that you really push for some level of education to be set as a minimum entry requirement into that, because I think it will help you greatly as a thing. But moving on, Moses, so what you are saying is that the issue for you as NALAO is not very much the suspensions, but the manner in which they are conducted.
That's correct. For us, it's the approach. It's definitely the manner. It definitely goes to the core of the procedure, and also goes to the cause of the consequence. I think this is what we are sharing with the minister, to see that we need to look into this drastically. I think as much as we are, looking at this matter slightly, or as serious as it may seem, the seriousness of it is what gets to be the culprit, not the culprit but the victim, is the institution, which suffers because of not having administrative leadership. Certain decisions might not be taken because by requirement of the law they must be taken by a substantive appointed CEO or administrative person whose council's function have been delegated to. And then the aspect of service delivery would then suffer. Then at the end of the day, the residents are the ones that don't get to appreciate the services you are being offered, or the services that we are actually paying for because of this vacuum. Of course, we have been advocating for the fact that there is need to look into the academic issues. We definitely are on record within the reform paper that as much as this might not be seen to be a relevant aspect, but I think it plays definitely a bigger role. Education is not only your academic qualifications, but it doesn't teach you the best of skills, but it can actually open you up to more wider, to look at a specific issue more wider than you could have looked at it just with a narrow eye. And I think this is where we advocate for definitely a bigger, and if it must be an overhaul, let it be an overhaul. There are more than, there are a lot of recommendations in our reform paper that was submitted by the Local Authority Reform Committee to the Minister, and I think to the Cabinet. We are continuing to advocate for those recommendations.
Yeah.
Those that are easily, that can easily be implemented, then should have been implemented.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing that we advocate in that reform paper is the issue of having an independent institution called the Local Authority, the Local Authority Commission, which should then be the independent body that should be looking at whether the procedures are followed, whether it is really warranting that this person should be suspended, or can take a decision so that that decision becomes more independent, more objective, than it being seen from a point of the councillors are pushing for an agenda, or the CEO has actually done ABC and taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
So we would be absolved better if we have some of those recommendations really implemented.
Indeed. My final question to you, Moses, is you alluded to the political nature of local authority councils. And my viewers will not forgive me if I do not ask you. We saw you on television live giving a very bold presentation at the City of Windhoek for the position of CEO. And then we never came to see the conclusion of that process. What was the conclusion of that process? Have you received a letter from the City of Windhoek saying that you were unsuccessful, or what was the feedback that you got from that?
We have not received any feedback. Individually, I have not received any feedback from the city itself. That space have to actually be left in the hands of the council or the institution itself. There is a process that they follow, and until that process has been concluded, they will be able to pronounce themselves appropriately. We should appreciate the fact that institutional framework exists, and within that institutional framework is where everything else is going to operate.
Yeah.
So as for now, I and myself are concentrating on the work at hand, that is to continue running the affairs of the Uutoni municipality and make it better. And until such time that a pronouncement is made, we definitely are ready to accept whatever the decision the council will make at the end.
How long does it take for Uutoni municipality to go back to applicants of jobs such an institution? What does your framework say? Can it take months just to go back to a person and say, look, we've succeeded or not?
No, it should fairly be. Not a lot of time.
Yes.
Within a period of 3 to 4 months, you should be able to get back to the candidate. I think this is normal. This is normal standard in any job. In any job recruitment process. As public institutions, what should be very clear to everybody and the viewers out there is that we are charged with running the affairs of the institution at the back burner of being transparent and also being accountable. So whatever we will be doing will be judged by any public opinion. So we need to be able to do we need to be able to follow the process religiously and prudently, such that when a decision has been made, it must not raise questions. It must be able to be seen that there is definitely a process that was followed, and if documentations must be given and proof must be provided, then that would actually absolve the whole process. So I think it's best left, with the institutional framework, and they will probably come to announce whatever the outcome is based on what they have looked at as an institution.
Indeed. Moses, am I allowed to shake your hand, my brother, for coming to the show? I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time that you made us with us.
Pandu. That was Moses Matyayi, is the CEO of the Uutoni municipality and also chairperson of NALAO. It is a long name that I can't recall now, but yeah, thank you for watching and good night.
Thank you very much.